We got it? All right, it is 6:01. We're here convening the Public Works Committee. Has this meeting been publicly noticed? It has. And all trustees are present, minus trustee McGovern, who's been excused. Tonight we have one agenda item. That is a Capitol Drive presentation, Capitol Drive Pedestrian Safety Enhancements Initiative. Review and possible consideration of potential options for modifications to roadway, landscape, streetscape, and signage. Tonight we have Director Butchlick here to go over these initiatives.
Okay, so your time is slightly less than I had initially requested and budgeted for, which is okay, I think. But in the packet, the slide presentation includes kind of an intersection by intersection review as it relates to conversations about bump out locations and feasibility. So I can go through, we can quickly flip through each one of those if you like, or I can just skip to the parts where they don't already exist and we might be able to put.
I guess, where do you think our efforts for this evening would be best placed? It's kind of like giving you a go ahead on some of these initiatives, a yes or no, and then flush out. Because I know that, from our conversations in the past, like the medians, I'm probably not in favor of the medians. It looks like the pedestrian safety group, so they're not in favor of the medians. Maybe that's one we.
Okay,
kind of
well, if you don't mind, if we
Yeah.
can just flip through the slides at least, so I make
Yep,
sure
for sure.
I haven't
Let's do
missed
that.
anything. But as it relates to bump outs, as we previously talked about, the bike lane on the eastbound lanes is immediately adjacent to the curb. So bump outs are not feasible on the south side of Capitol to the westbound.
Right.
On the north side, there are a couple intersections where they don't currently exist, and they could be installed if that's something that you wanted to look further at. If you want me just to jump right to those, I can. So at Newhall, we do have the possibility. Excuse me, can you hold the slide up, please? So what would be the northwest corner of Newhall and Capitol? Does not currently have a bump out.
Okay.
You could place a bump out directly across from that on the northeast corner of Newhall. However, there is a bus stop there. And that would require most likely elimination of that stop because pushing the stop further to the east would conflict with the gas station.
Where is the next stop?
The next bus out.
The bus stop's on the other side of the street, isn't it? Or am I reading that incorrectly?
No, it's on the north.
No, but the bus stop's here,
Mhm.
right outside the gas station, and the bump out you got to put out over
You
here.
could put,
You could
you
put one.
could put one here. I didn't circle it because
The bus stop.
while it is feasible, it creates a chain reaction of other things that I wouldn't recommend.
Okay.
So the northwest corner would be a potential location for a bump out. And then moving over to Bartlett,
So keep going a little bit. There you go.
that would be the other potential location at the northeast corner. That crosswalk was intended to be the primary crosswalk for student traffic.
Mhm.
There is not one on the other side of Bartlett because of that left turn lane. It's not good practice to have a crosswalk through a left turn station. My recollection at the time the Capitol was designed was that there was no bump out put there because of the impact on parking.
Okay.
The previous administration had a directive to maximize on-street.
And this is Shorewood Press right in front of you?
Correct.
Okay.
So that would be another potential location within this corridor. So basically you have the option to add, I would say two bump outs.
Okay.
The only other location that does not have one would be the northwest corner of Morris. And because of that very heavy U-turn movement at that intersection, I staff would not recommend placing it like that.
And now this is, I'm just devil's advocate, I live right there. You know, that U-turn, you can even see how much the U-turn is used
Yep.
by the, you know, the pavement markings are already gone away. It happens just all day long
Yep.
at Culvers. Is there a way of moving past that U-turn? Like, can we not allow U-turns there?
We used to not, then they
Then
changed
there
the
was a
law.
state law change that U-turns are permissible at a signalized intersection unless expressly prohibited.
But we could express it very.
You could. I don't honestly believe that would stop the move.
Right, and, you know, and also thinking about it, they're just gonna take Morris and it's gonna create more of a problem on Morris. So, and is it really that big of a problem? I kind of ask myself that at times. Chief, what do you think? The U-turn, is that a big issue, something that we should look at, or do you find issues with it?
Well, I think that until people get accustomed to the fact that there's no U-turns there, they're gonna continue to make U-turns. And so that creates potentially an enforcement issue. Like you said, it also will increase traffic on Morris for them to get around.
Mhm.
But it also may increase traffic into the eastern part of that, there on Larkin, where there's a turnaround. So they'll probably turn around there. And if as Leanne mentioned, if there's bump outs there that create difficulties on Morris, you're gonna have the same issue on Larkin then with the bump outs. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm just kind of getting a bigger picture. It's something I've thought a lot about, and I kind of come back to the idea that, you know, while not ideal, maybe the U-turn is the best option there. Is so you're not creating more traffic within the sort of community, the residential community, a little bit more north.
Can I, I wasn't part of the board when they redesigned Capitol, but was there a reason that you can't just turn, I mean, I know that the street design doesn't allow for a left turn out of the parking lot from Culvers, right? Because it's just a left turn only going westbound. Why did it, you know why they decided to not allow you to drive straight out of Culvers and then take a left and go down Capitol?
I think I'm totally guessing
Okay.
here. But I believe it was a traffic safety issue in terms of circulation, both within the Culvers parking lot and then a heavy traffic movement trying to cross mid-block and then potentially queuing in the median and blocking traffic.
Okay.
If someone's trying, you know.
Unless there was a great design, it would be chaos.
But I mean, the other thought being that there's a huge parking lot that's very rarely used
That's very good.
that's very rarely used at the market next door, the whole southern end of that parking lot. So why couldn't we
Make a connector, so
make a
people can.
connector so people can go to Wilson and drive out of Wilson?
I don't recall the results, but, there was a traffic.
These are great.
There was there was also a traffic study done at the time that Culvers was, developed. I'm not sure at that time that they owned both of the properties. They do now.
I just-
Owns the corner lot.
It's the same one. I just wonder, I mean, it's,
So they would, I don't know if you can actually, this is, I think, a one-way right here. So I don't think people can exit that way.
Yeah, they can, yeah.
They can exit right here. Okay. So there's a light right there?
that's the way it was.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great if you could retrain people. Sorry, Kathy. It'd be great if you could retrain people to, you know,
I mean, there's
I don't
even,
know how you would do that if you got your stuff through the drive-through window, turned around, came through and looped on.
Significant.
Oh, my God.
Redevelopment of their
Yeah.
traffic circulation, parking lots.
I bet you they would look at it, if people couldn't make a U-turn coming off of Morris
And so
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
and Anheuser. Doesn't.
if you are exiting Corner Bakery, you're at part of that four-way stop and go, right?
If you exit on the western end of that parking lot, the
You're
eastern
part of
end,
the stop and go pattern.
the eastern end
You're at a
exits
stoplight,
right next to
stop and
Culvers.
go light.
Yes,
There's another exit
there's two exits. to Baker.
that is just to the east of that, and it's not same.
Yeah, the east one would be the same track as Culver's, where you'd still have to go up and then do the U-turn to get back.
All I know is the first time I was on the board, there was so much business at Culver's that they added a second drive-through. I mean, that's how many
Yeah.
cars. It's just, I think we'd be astonished to know how many cars there are.
What,
And I really like that idea of making them loop it back. I just think that Morris U-turn plus anybody trying to cross there. You've got your food, it's hot, you're thinking, I've got to go this way. The whole model is, I've just got to get this way, and most of it, well, we don't know for sure, but a lot of it is I've got to get back, because it's, then I want to go westbound.
yeah, these are going west. I mean, much like Arthur, I've spent plenty of time on that intersection, and it's a constant flow of U-turns.
You might be honest. This is
No,
a little out of,
Yeah,
out of our.
President McKay, is that where you're going with this?
Respectfully,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's something for the,
fascinating.
yes. For future conversation.
Okay, so, if the board or the committee wishes to recommend to the board, pursuing bump out options or opportunities, we have two methods to do that. One would be, the temporary installation. So that cost would be 100% village cost. There don't appear to be currently a lot of safe grant options for that. As I mentioned, there's those 3 potential locations in the taper request area. The other option would be permanent installation, which would be like a constructed in place, either with a full curb or the pinned in place option, which is, what we're seeing more and more frequently in the city of Milwaukee. The constructed in place are pretty expensive. And the pinned in place are significantly less expensive. Any of these 3 options, so the temporary with the tubular bollards, the constructed in place or pinned in place, would all require Department of Transportation approval. All of those approvals would essentially be the same. It would have to be an engineer stamp plan. So in here, I have an estimated plan cost of 15 or 10 to 15 per intersection. I'm trying to, like pin a moving target here. It might be less, it won't be more. But it also depends in part on which of those 3 options is most palatable. Obviously, the constructed in place plans are going to be significantly more expensive because we're talking about the potential of altering underground utilities. The temporary installations would be quite inexpensive because basically it's some tubulars, markers, and construction adhesive. And then your pinned in place, that estimate was provided by the city.
I think these are all, these things worth exploring, bump outs, in the laid out. Sort of the mapped out areas here that you put down.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I mean, I would like to see if they work, right? So
Yeah.
Temporary makes more sense to me, just to see if
Yeah.
it does what we want it to do, and then we could budget for something a little bit more expensive down the road. But clearly there seems to be a need.
So, one thing you might consider is the Safe Streets for All demonstration activities includes these, not on Capitol Drive. They're at, is it Bartlett?
Correct.
Are they up right now?
No.
Okay.
April, May.
So your possible action alternatives, there are more, but these, see, nothing. The second would be defer any action until evaluation of those demonstration activities. And then the third would be to make a recommendation at the village board that funds be allocated for the engineering plans that are required to advance this to the stop for there.
Is there anything that allows us to change the location of the state's to safe street placements. Like if we didn't want to put them at these two places, we wanted them run to different intersections.
I'd have to ask the county, but we did submit, Kensington as the location for that. There may be leeway in it, but,
That's your problem. I mean, if they're both carrying one way or the other.
Yeah, because there was two, right? Do we have two on Kensington?
2 on Kensington, Currents, we would have to get, so we do have engineered plans for those now, to, install and purchase. We'd have to, ask Strand to modify that, and then at the end, I presume those would still go to the state.
Mhm.
And so that would just extend the time. I don't know if we have time to get that all done for the, April, May projected installation, because we did one at while school was still in session.
And then if we were to make a recommendation to the village board that funds be allocated for the engineering plans for, let's say, the temporary ballards or temporary bump outs, what does that look like? When can we get that moving? And I think we do have a timeline down.
Well, I mean, my first step then would be to get a cost estimate
Hmm.
on that from Strand or a proposal to do that. In all likelihood, that would have to be a 2026 budget recommendation. Because there are not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's of course the board's prerogative, but I'm not aware of any unallocated funds available for.
So if we did that, would it be safe to say we defer action until evaluation of the safer streets? Of how the bump outs are doing in Kensington and,
If that is the route, I don't think that impacts the timeline.
right?
What? Can you give me a sense of sort of what kind of information you could expect to get from Kensington that's gonna be applicable to Capitol? I mean, they don't seem very comparable.
Yeah,
I mean, maintenance issues, I mean,
that would be it, right?
obviously, if there were a maintenance issue on Kensington, it'd be even worse on Capitol, I presume. I mean, I think we know theoretically what they're going to do in terms of being installed, but it's a matter of how often these things get hit, taken down.
I feel like I kind of see them in the city, it's just all over the place, like they're just,
Our initial conversations with city DPW is that it's a weekly, at least.
Yeah.
Issue. For maintenance and replacement repair.
with that temporary technology, I'm sure this is happening in communities all across the country. Are they finding better sort of technology or better, engineering to keep, better products of these?
Bollards or something.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, that, as these things catch on and continue to grow and be used, that might be a future thing, but as of right now, the options are kind of the option.
Is it, an engineering plan for each location? Wow. That could
I
be
mean, if you're-
$30,000 just for.
Well, if you're talking about bollards, I think certainly not.
Yeah,
If you are talking about a constructed in place traditional bump out, then it'd be significantly more than that, just at one corner.
The engineering plan?
Yeah.
Wow.
It boggles my mind. Kensington and what? What Kensington and
Bartlett and
Larkin.
Larkin, it's those Bartlett and Newhall Larkin, sorry. The one in the middle did not, the one in the middle already has a four-way stop, so we moved it one block west, so it's the first block and the third block. To the west of.
why do we need engineering? I mean, why did we? Was it part of the application?
We didn't need engineer, we just needed plans so that we knew how to install it, so the engineer drew up the plans. They would need to do the similar
I
thing.
think
For the study
state
as important.
the state requires an engineering. Next time we can.
Okay, so the plans are, so the plans are
some money.
$30,000 for two, $15 for pop, 50,000 each.
Well, I think she was saying $30,000 potentially for like the constructed permanent bump out concrete and.
Oh, I thought
really
those were like
strict-
70. I thought those were quite a bit more expensive. Okay, so I'm confused between study and plan. Are they the same thing? Is it?
I'm not doing a study. We're not talking about studies.
Yeah.
There's
We'd be looking at the study in Kensington to see.
I need a plan sheet to submit to a staff.
mean, I don't know, Leanne, I think there was the middle option, the pinned down option that I presume will have less maintenance. I don't know if you're familiar with,
Yes.
like, this.
But they would still require the same
See,
plan sheet.
but they have similar ones to that on
On
Lake Drive, right? Lake Drive going north. The new reconstruction in Milwaukee on Lake Drive.
When you say
Milwaukee
pinned-
I've seen them hit twice already.
So those are basically,
Oh, it's
they
left.
just take a precast island and,
Oh,
Drop
like
it
this
on
whole
it.
concrete thing is the,
yeah, it's,
yeah, well, I think that's, I mean, I think outside of the maintenance for cleaning that out, because it's
Correct.
theoretically a bike lane, right? And, you
Well,
know,
that's, yeah, that's for, water and drainage right there.
no, it's not a bike.
it's not that,
No, that's just for
It's
water.
not
wide.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah, I mean, bikes can get through there, I would assume, because you're gonna be putting it on a bike lane.
No, just wanted you guys.
Oh, I'm sorry, somebody
had
had
his hand up a moment ago.
Okay, I totally forgot about the public. Sorry, Sandy. If you still would like to contribute to the conversation, please unmute yourself.
All right, can you hear me?
Sir?
Great, thanks. This is Sandy Pendleton. I appreciate the quality of the work that Leanne put in tonight's presentation. I thought it was very helpful. And I appreciate you guys continuing to have an interest in improving pedestrian and bicycle safety and student safety on West Capitol. I do hope you will consider the intersection of Morris and Capitol a bit further. I think that that is the intersection that parents have the most concern about. And I think we are taking so far tonight a very car-centric, driver-centric view as to the design of that intersection. I would like to see us think about how we could change that intersection so that pedestrians are safer than they are now. Primarily, we protect pedestrians by limiting the amount of roadway that they have to cross, that they are exposed to cars, some cars traveling 30, 35 miles, 40 miles per hour in that section. We can do that by a pedestrian bump out at the northwest corner of that intersection. And one other option would be to remove the left turn lane, go a left turn lane diet at that intersection. That would then be having cars making their U-turn or their left turn to go around the block at the next intersection, which I believe is I'm sorry, the next intersection, somebody help me. What's the next intersection east of Morris?
Larkin.
Larkin, thank you. They would turn at Larkin. I note that there is a commercial alley there that I don't think has any residential houses on it that cars could use to go around the block. I also note that even if they went up to the next street and take a left, there are very few houses on that street. Larkin and Capitol is a street that is used by many fewer pedestrians and many fewer students in particular. I do think there would be room for a bump out at that northwest corner. And I do think we could consider asking MCTS to move the bus stop at the northeast corner of Morris and Capitol to allow a bump out there. Again, I hope you all will give some consideration, some further consideration to that before just eliminating that as anything under consideration. Because right now we're not making any improvements to Morris whatsoever. I did forward to Kathy Stokebrand something about Michigan turns, and I will forward that on to you. That would essentially be consistent with eliminating the left turn lane. The studies indicate that adopting a Michigan turn or MUTS design of an intersection greatly enhances the safety at the intersections for all users, drivers, pedestrians, and bike riders. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy.
I don't think I've seen the Michigan turn. I can't speak to it. I mean, I just have a real hard time. I mean, both my daughters cross that street multiple times a day, and I have a real hard time getting rid of a left turn there. I mean, it's just pushing that to Larkin or pushing that to the alley behind Larkin, which has two houses that are adjacent to it, as well as two businesses and an apartment building. Just seems very unsafe. especially since that's basically a blind alley
Mhm.
on the western half. Right, Matt?
Yeah.
So, I would not favor doing that if that's what would happen if we got rid of left turn lane. Although I understand it would be safer at that intersection, I don't know that it would be. I think it would make other places far less safe.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think Sandy is correct. We haven't addressed Morris. We need to figure something out there.
There is a bus stop, as you mentioned, at the northeast corner. That bus stop. I'm doing this on the fly, so, but I think we could certainly review, moving that bus stop to the east to allow for a bump out at that corner.
When we did Morris, or when we did Wilson, how did we work those bump outs with the bus stops?
That's what we did. So rather than having the bus stop basically pull right to the corner of the intersection, we moved that stop gets moved back 20, 30, 40 feet, depending on the size of the bump. You would be eliminating a significant amount of parking, but I don't know necessarily that is a huge,
Yeah,
that
not
block is a
that
huge
block.
parking generator.
I don't think people park there very often. My only concern would be there's a garage that is behind that apartment building, to the east of that apartment building, before you get to the salon and Sharp Brothers. I don't even have to look at them.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think there's probably enough space here to create a bump out and still have a bus stop. You would just eliminate all parking in the driveway. I don't think it's
So with the bump out there, people wouldn't be able to turn right. Easy, like they'd
Well,
have to
they
kind
could,
of get into that.
but they
lane
wouldn't be able to pull out of the through, they'd have to turn from the through traffic.
From the through traffic.
So does that back up westbound through traffic?
Yes. Well, I mean, I guess how many.
To an
people-
extent that it matters.
Yeah, I
or-
don't know how many people, yeah.
And I think you'll see it differently at different times, right?
I have to leave, but I would encourage us to contact Milwaukee County Transit and see about the feasibility of moving these bus stops a little bit. Because that to me is a key part of some of this bump
Yeah,
out discussion.
I'm definitely open to it, and I think that helps if I think that's a compromise, if we cannot move,
I think that's really your directive.
Yeah.
I think you necessarily have to ask.
right,
Elimination of stops involves that give and take. Location specifically is entirely.
Mhm.
But I do think it's,
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
I think it's incredibly important that if that doesn't work and they're not willing to leave it, then we need to have a completely different conversation, because tons of students rely on what used to be the 62. Because I'm old and I don't. That bus that heads west, and I don't want to be in a situation where middle school students have to walk up to Oakland or wherever the next one. Maybe even the gas station. That's not the greatest place to cross it.
Staff can certainly make that contact. Don't really see that. Won't see it being.
I would love to
Yeah.
move forward with, the exploring the concept of moving that bus stop back and creating a bump out in that location. I think that's probably the most high value bump out that we could actually create as well.
Do you, okay, so staff will contact MCTS. Do you have a directive or preference related to the type of bump out, physical type?
I mean, I like the PennDOT, which, Bart was showing us an example of. I don't mind the temporary. I've just seen them in Milwaukee and they look great for a week, and then all those like little ballards just disappear, and it's gonna be a constant headache, and it's just not gonna serve its purpose unless we can, this is a better system for it.
I've also seen flower pot. I mean, I've seen like on North Avenue. That's a terrible. I shouldn't even have brought that up.
I think at this particular location.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not going to be a maintenance issue. I don't think it's likely to be the type of maintenance issue you see at some of the high profile intersections.
Okay.
Because I don't think we get a ton of at this location attempts to pass on it.
Well,
Which is, I
okay,
think, where
Great.
most of those things.
I just think that if we, Captain Rovalesky made a point, like, I think if we do something like this, we have to signage the heck of the whole area, just so that people are amazingly clear that there's something there you can't drive over. But yeah, let's explore it. I'm good with starting with temporary, see if it works, and
Yeah.
then go to permanent. But temporary doesn't feel all that safe, since you're standing in the road and the only thing between you and a car and a little green and white plastic post.
yeah,
So, maybe I'll ask this question. Is there anything to be learned by doing a temporary bump out? Is there
I think
any knowledge we're gonna get?
you would
without
have a
spending
better
money?
understanding of those queuing impacts. Like if a car can't pull into the parking lane bus stop to make a right turn.
Yeah.
I don't think
You think they could turn on market?
it's gonna be a huge issue, but you would learn that.
you'd have to, so turning on those streets to get to Morris?
You could, oh,
Yeah, for me, I would.
well, you cut through the alley that Sandy wants you to cut through.
So, can I make this suggestion?
Sure.
Prior to your next meeting, staff will contact MCCS to ask about the moving that stop to the east. I can also request a number from Strand to prepare that required plan sheet for WISDOT's approval. I'm guessing the cost difference would be minimal between a pinned on and a temporary bollard. And then I can come back to you at next meeting and you can
Yeah, love it.
either direct me to submit it as one or the other, or both,
I love it.
and make that decision later.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Is this the only intersection we're gonna talk about? Or do you wanna look at something similar at, Bartlett, for example?
I would say can we just get the numbers for Bartlett, what that looks like at Bartlett? I'd be open to Bartlett. For me, Morris is the most sort of high value one here. If we could do one, it would 100% be Morris.
And I like that side of the street, that's the side with the crossing guards on.
And if you look at, like a Google Maps, it's the largest sort of space, on Capitol. It's kind of like, looking at all these, it is
The
very
distance.
wide.
But yeah, to Sandy's point, the distance
Right.
between,
So if we're cutting this off here, taking a lane out, that's gonna narrow that street down. That's gonna solve a lot of sort of these issues that we've been having. No, northeast. And not in the northwest, because it's just the U-turn situation. It'd be hard to do a U-turn.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, so I think,
we might tackle U-turn.
You also point out the cross guard is posted on the east side of the
Right.
intersection.
Trustee Kudo, do you have any other thoughts on bump outs on the other streets, the New Hall, is it New Hall and
Larkin.
Larkin?
They already exist at Larkin.
Bartlett by
Bartlett
Short,
and New Hall.
Short Press.
The Bartlett intersection frankly is the same size as first. I'm not as. I just don't think the traffic is as much at Bartlett or Larkin as it is in Morris.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of it would be a nice to have, but I don't know if it's a have to have.
Because they're just coming off of this turn, right? So they're waiting at one of these lights for the most part. They're coming off a turn. They're not quite up to full speed, but once they get to Morris, there's no other light until Morris. And if they hit Morris, they're going, that's when they've kind of really sort of picked up speed
Yeah, as they head downhill.
as they head, yeah.
Um,
So I could go either way, but I'm way more interested in solving the Morris sort of issue.
would it be fair to say that whatever Strand comes back with, it's gonna be the same one?
I would
Generally speaking. if they can figure out from Strand what it's gonna cost. And then we can plus up or,
For just Morris, and then we can just take that.
yeah, just
data and say
extrapolate that cost, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Let's move on to barriers.
Would-
Or
Can I just raise one question I had before we move to barriers?
yes, Sandy, go for it.
Yes, so I don't understand, and I hope Leanne can help me understand this, what the difference between temporary bump outs and pinned on bump outs is. And then just one comment, I think we could learn several things from a temporary bump out. That would include, did adding bump outs at this intersection reduce average vehicle speeds at this intersection? Did adding this increase the rate at which drivers yield to pedestrians who stepped off the curb? And we can gather community feedback. Do members of the community like or dislike bump outs? That should help us then gauge whether we want to invest further into a permanent bump out at that intersection. So thanks. But that was my one question. Difference between pinned on and temporary.
Pinned on are concrete, temporary are the tubular bollards.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, the next. My next item was vegetation. You recall the Tabor request identified some limbs blocking signage, which we took care of. But we have these continuing issues or comments about plantings in the median that block sight, use, vision, etc. It's been our staff's position that many of the planting materials that were selected for that landscape design aren't really appropriate for the location. So many of them have died out. We've removed some of them because they're just too tall. So one thing that we would look at is having Ben, kind of go through this whole segment and really take a bigger, better look at, what needs to come out. Are there other options for putting something lower growing in? Should there be plantings there at all? Are there smaller sections that should be converted back to turf? I have a couple of them listed in here. So these are a couple of options as well. We can do nothing. We can just keep cutting stuff back every couple weeks. We could look at developing this Monument landscape plan with the goal of increasing visibility. Yeah, those are the two.
Trustee Kudo.
We would do that in-house, so that there would be no cost to doing the plan.
Right.
It would just be, if we have recommendations, we would look at funding those, but they have to be funded through our operating.
From a cost perspective, is there a big significant difference between maintaining on a bi-weekly basis versus modifying it? I guess since if you modify it, you're probably not going back
It's
out
far
there.
more efficient.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's safer.
Yeah.
Working in that median is,
I can imagine.
Yeah. It
Okay,
would be my preference to develop a longer term solution rather than having somebody go out there every couple weeks with a hedge trimmer.
yeah,
I mean, something permanent, unless it's a brick like we have, farther west on Capitol. Everything's gonna deteriorate, right? I mean, the brick's probably gonna last the longest. If you put some bit of metal up like they have by Marquette campus.
vegetation. So this is just.
I'm just thinking through all of it. It's a big picture.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
Vegetation, two things. One, I love that instead of saying the word bush, we use woody herbaceous material. I don't have a problem with some streetscape, some vegetation. I certainly don't have a problem with planting, just sort of the traditional type of short box bush you would see outside your house. They don't require a ton of maintenance. I don't know how they would stand up against salt.
Big fact.
But I am sure that there is vegetation that exists that would meet our needs. I'm just not an expert in the area. And I would do that before I would do from this.
So we've had in the past, talking to a lot of residents, there's been significant issues with the plantings because it creates like sideline issues. for
Yeah, I'm thinking
turning-
just low, like.
Right, so I think
2 feet tops.
yeah, so I think, what probably Land's proposing is they go through and they just kind of identify all of these areas and just kind of now with however long this has been out there as a gauge, they can go back and say like, well, this didn't work and this is what works better, and then start to plant things that work much better in those areas.
And it would be an overtime proposition. We wouldn't come back and say, all right, well, we're gonna do all of this next year and it's gonna cost X.
Little
It's-
pieces.
It's gonna be,
Yeah.
like, we'll target the things, it'll be pieces at a time, going after the
Yeah.
ones that are most egregious.
Yeah,
And I know we have, I don't know if we still have it, but we have the area where you were growing trees. I mean, is there any opportunity to just sort of grow some of our own vegetation and throw it in there, or is that just too much?
No, that really can't overwinter in a gravel bed.
Fair enough.
It's just for root development.
Okay.
But, I mean, we have options for, this doesn't have to cost.
I agree.
We'll figure
Yeah.
out a way to do it
I imagine.
over time, for a minimally reasonable cost.
Okay.
But we can, if you want, we'll just start with a plan and we can come back and say, all right, this is what we think it's gonna be.
Okay.
Sounds fair.
Medium barriers.
I don't even wanna,
Not interested.
not interested. Sorry. I'm glad you're on the same page.
All right,
There's nothing worse than seeing those dented, it's just gonna be an eyesore.
and given the rate recently at which we have to replace signal poles and
Yeah.
streetlight poles,
I saw one down
I
here.
can only imagine.
Oh,
Just rusty.
what about the one on Capitol? Did somebody hit that kind of by the gas station? The bus hit it? Yeah, something hit it hard.
All right,
That's
so
our trade-off for moving.
the
back.
last
It's
one-
Stop.
we have a couple minutes, I think we can do it. So this actually wasn't necessarily part of the tape request,
Mhm.
but this is sort of staff's, saying, all right, if there are other things you want to consider, or you want to do this more comprehensively, this would potentially be one more option. To bring more visibility to crosswalks. And that would be, potential overhead signage,
Mhm.
similar to what you see on Whitefish Bay, north of Silver Spring. Or this one, I think is a California. Like, these are big and they will not be inexpensive.
Yeah, I can imagine.
If this is something that is of interest, I could ask Strand to do an hour or two's worth of research, or I could do that on, what potential grant funding might be.
I would say if there's a little research for grants, I'd be open to that, especially the first sign, with I don't know if you can
What you're
change,
saying,
yeah, I
Michael?
don't know, can you change what that says? Is that something like, there's like a program you can just change the wording of that? Or is that up there kind of,
I would imagine you
it's a digital sort of,
can, yeah.
because something like that would be great. I mean, if there's like some sort of digital
Flash
message
lights or
board
something.
with
Well, they get,
a little sketchy on that.
they
I got
don't
you.
necessarily like things that change because it distracts you.
Yeah, I got
Grabs
you.
your attention from where it should be.
I would definitely, I'm not opposed to you looking at grant funding for something like this. I think it would be, it'd be a nice addition. I mean, would we just think of one? Would we do one sign, maybe multiple?
I think, something like this or
Yeah.
this is going to be
Very expensive.
very expensive.
Yeah,
So I think unless there are grant opportunities, I don't know what your.
yeah, I'm not, this one looks a little too, that one's a little.
That's a bit much.
Yeah, it is.
But you're also, big roadway, so.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so we have time scheduled on the 17th.
Okay.
So this will bring back some additional information on these items with the exception of the meetings.
Sorry, meeting barriers.
Let's just take care of that.
All right.
Okay.
That does it for us. All right, so motion to adjourn. So moved at 6:46. 1 minute late. We started 1 minute early though.
It is 6:46 PM. I'll call it to order the Community and Business Relations Committee. Has this meeting been posted?
Yes.
We have 2 members present. Trustee McGovern is marked excused for today. Kathy, you must have joined us at the table. Come on up. We have 3 agenda items for today. Discussing North Morris roadway closure for trick or treat, review July 4th parade route, and consider the 2025 initiatives. Assistant Village Manager Anderson, why don't you take us out?
Well, I did not write the memo for the Morris closure, so I'm happy to defer to anybody who would like to get us started. Okay, who wants to lead the discussion?
Sure, well, I guess we'll do it from the committee then.
Yeah.
So I grew up on Morris, Arthur lives on Morris. There, you know, for many, many, many years, Morris has been unbelievably busy during trick or treat. And I'm thinking in most, if not all, of the trustees, pretty unsafe. So I brought up not too long ago, closing off Morris Boulevard during trick or treat hours. So it would be Morris from Capitol to Olive. I think it was our first discussion. So there'd be sort of that T intersection, or the Y intersection closer to Triangle Park, which the street name I don't recall. Kenmore. So just north of Capitol at Kenmore would be closed as well. But just an opportunity for kids to travel safely on that block. With the thought of seeing how it worked, seeing, you know, if it was feasible for expansion to some other streets somewhere down the road, or if that just sort of took care of the issues. So I believe it passed 6-0 to get sent to this committee. This is where we find ourselves. Trustee Persing.
Yeah, I mean, that sums it up. I think, you know, where you just want to kind of drill down at this point and kind of figure out all of the, you know, potential downfalls you might not be looking at. You know, you know, we're intending this to be a positive situation, want everybody to be safe. But are we creating situations of, you know, not safe environment? So I think those are kind of the questions we have, and that's for the direction we're moving. Are we creating more problems by blocking off the street with the intention of having a safe, fun environment for kids? Or, you know, is it more dangerous than we're anticipating? You guys have.
That's a great segue because we do also have, so from all the public safety partners are here. So we have first PD. Chief Whitaker, can you hear us? Okay, great.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. So I think there was a pre-meeting to discuss this closure, is that correct? Am I mistaken?
We reviewed,
Okay, gotcha.
and I think out of that meeting, Rebecca then wrote the memo and made the recommendation that rather than this be a village-sponsored activity, that on a pilot basis anyway, her recommendation all was that it be done as a block party.
Okay. And if you do it as a block party, can we actually close from Capitol all the way to Olive? Thoughts?
So it'd be the 4100 block.
Well, that would be, ultimately, the block party permit would be approved by,
Village,
yeah, village staff.
From what, you know, from your perspective, just, you know, knowing what happens on Halloween on Morris, what would you see happening if we were to close that street down?
So in general, you know, I think what we need to consider ultimately with any road closure, whether it's for shenanigans or feast or a bike race or anything like that, in public safety, we have to reconsider in light of what happened in Charlottesville, Waukesha, New Orleans. How do we provide the adequate amount of public safety and the resources? And when I say resources, I mean not just personnel, but physical barricades, and all of those apparatus that may help us secure a location to the event, to the extent possible to avoid Now, of course, in New Orleans, he drove on the sidewalk, even though there was barricades. And so, I mean, there may potentially be other considerations, but do we have the staffing? Do we have the resources? Do we have the equipment? Do we have the wherewithal? And all of the necessary parts to put in place for a closure such as that. You take a look at the shenanigans piece, bike race, it is a lot of resources. Now you're talking about a 4 or 5 block stretch on Morris, which is a heavily traveled road. And so what's the staffing, what's the resources necessary for that? Not only that, but diverted traffic. I think you also have to consider, and I know Leanne mentioned this, but whether or not it's a village sponsored event, the optics
Yeah,
having
that's what that's gonna be what I brought up.
Yeah.
You know, if the village doesn't sponsor it and it's a block party, it's gonna look like we're trying to keep people out of the community. That would be that's kind of my perspective.
Well, I
Well-
think there's a
Little
flip on the optics, that if the village sponsors it, and it happens to be a block a trustee lives on.
but then we deny one later. And then there's taking into consideration what the other residents on that 4 or 5 block stretch, what they think, how they feel, and potentially being captive in their own home because you've got roadway. So,
Or what's the, when you have all the kids from the village going over, how much the candy budget gonna be?
The candy budget's already very high.
Yeah,
Um,
but
that's
Parents'
it.
candy budget is stout.
I feel like $200 worth of candy goes out the door before it's even over, so,
Yeah, and saying now if you have all the kids going over.
yeah.
I mean, so, optics, that's for us, I guess that's our problem. That's our issue to worry about. I just want to, is it feasible? Can it be done? Can we close, even if it was a block party, right? Block party or a village sanctioned event. Do we have the ability to close Morris safely between, PD, fire, DPW?
so if it's a block party, police department does not close roadways.
So it's a DPW level 3 barrier.
So block parties, we provide barricades, we
Right.
don't set them up.
Right.
This would be significantly more, than your typical block party. Because it's longer, there's alley access that we have to worry about. So,
It's shorter than a block party. It's only 3 hours. Right, the actual.
no, I'm talking about the number of barricades.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alley.
Yeah.
Alley.
Then you've got Palmdale.
Capital,
10
you're
more.
talking probably 4,
Yeah,
at that.
Olive,
Entrance,
probably 4 as well.
So, do we have enough?
Could be right.
Typically, the village doesn't do that, it's the petitioner's response
But if we want to, we could.
To do what, I'm sorry.
to rent additional.
If we didn't have enough barricades. the people could.
Within the framework of whatever DPW's requirements are, right?
Yeah, I mean, for most block parties, it's pretty, what's the right word? They're not as robust as you might see for an event street. The requirements for closing a block are not the same. This one, I would say, because of the nature of it, because of the time, because of its adjacency to Capitol Drive, maybe we have a little bit different of a review or a conversation. I think, and I brought this up there, and this is more my mom hat than my DPW hat. But I think if you have an event like this, and you have kids involved and parents involved, there's an expectation that the road is closed. I maybe don't have to be as vigilant as I would be on a regular trick or treat day. That being the case, I think we have to really make sure that there's no possibility for vehicle movement within that area. And if that means cones or barricades at every driveway, make sure people don't leave, then you know, that,
Well, it sounds like, so to get a block permit, you have to, you know, speak to X amount of, you gotta get X amount of signatures of the people on the block, right?
I think technically you have to.
technically you're required to notify everyone. There's not a percentage number
Okay.
that you need to.
I think with something like this though, and just being on that block and a resident, I would want to get the temperature of everybody that lives on that block and see kind of like, would you be here? Are you gonna stay here? Would you not want to be here? Are you gonna participate? You know, like what? So I think the residents there have to participate in order for that to be, you know, a fun event or an interesting sort of event for people.
Yeah, if you get too many that spook and leave and close the doors.
It's gonna be- yeah,
So I mean, you know, from my mind's eye, it's less an event.
Right,
And it's just, we put up barriers and close the streets. And, you know, organically, whatever happens with regards to kids participating or houses participating, if we find out it's a complete dud and it doesn't work, we never do it again. I don't want to, you know, make it more than it is.
you know, talk to your stepdad about it.
Did I?
Yeah.
Briefly?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know, I can't just take one person's.
Was he like, oh, heck no?
No, I mean, I think that they have been for 25, 30 years terrified that some kid's gonna be hit by a car,
Yeah,
you know, because it's trick or treat and your costumes and you're running back and forth across the street and, you know, it hasn't happened, but I've been on that street long enough to know that it should have.
yeah.
It's not, you know, it's just dumb luck. So, yeah. Sandy, do you have a?
Yes, thank you. So these are my personal comments. These aren't any comments of the committee, the subcommittee that I serve on. You know, my overall philosophy is streets are for people, not for just cars and drivers. We have to ask ourselves, which is more safe, having the street open or having the street closed? Ultimately, we give parents the responsibility to make decisions about their child's welfare and to watch over their children. And it's the same in this situation. So I would favor allowing this to be done on a block party by block party basis. We can do it one year. If it turns out it's a problem, then we don't do it other years. But I think it's worth doing. I think some of the issues been raised are good ones, but overall, having a street shut off with barricades is probably safer than not allowing cars to drive down that street that day. As to the issue of cost, barricades are extremely low cost to acquire. I know that in prior
No,
years.
Sandy, I would disagree. They're
No,
not.
I'm just let me finish the thought. If you want to rent those from Barricade Flashing Service for a weekend, it's about $10 a barricade. So, you know, that doesn't seem like a significant cost to me. We have to consider cost, but I don't think that the type of barricades we're talking about are extremely expensive. Thank you.
Arthur, where are you? Or people are, yeah.
Nope.
Just here for the party?
Here for the party.
Okay.
Said I was gonna be here.
Trustee Ursink, where is
Yeah,
your?
you know, I just, you know, it's quite the experience to live on Morris during a trick or treat. Those cars are gonna go somewhere else. Where are they gonna go? I love the idea of testing something out. I think something needs to, you know, I think we need to do something. It's very dangerous. I sit outside and I just watch plenty of kids jet across the street. Morris kind of narrows down. Cars have a hard time getting around each other. And I mean, you know, people are, you know, they're having fun. They're in good spirits. They're having fun, sometimes a little too much fun. And I think it's only a matter of time before something does happen. And I'd hate to have it happen in front of my house. So, but taking that in consideration, if we close down that main artery, all those cars are still going to go somewhere. And where are they going to go and how are they going to interact, whether it be on Woodburn, whether it be on Larkin, whether it be, you know, on Capitol, who knows? But I'm always interested in kind of experimenting and seeing, you know, if this, what this could do to create a safer environment for those kids.
Do you have to live on a block to request block party?
would it be appropriate for me to do that? Being a trustee and if that's significant and, yeah,
Well,
It's still bad.
I think one thing that we haven't necessarily completely put to bed is that technically the village's block party policy would not allow Morris. So I think this is gonna have to come to the board for,
got it.
I don't know. I
Okay.
think that's a Rebecca Nathan question, maybe.
I think what I'd like to do though is just knowing my neighbors, I would like to just kind of float this past a couple people and see, kind of take their temperature and see where they're at. Cause I do believe that we need community buy-in for it to be successful. I feel like if everybody leaves, that weekend or that day, those couple hours, then you know, it makes it a really sort of bizarre situation. And in the optics of it looking like we're trying to not allow certain people into our neighborhood is even greater, you know. I know it's not an event, but you know, when we create a block party and we close down the street, I'd like to do my best to make it an event and make it interesting and exciting and fun for everybody and welcoming for everybody. So it's kind of, I know I'm all over the place.
Yeah, no, what are your thoughts on deferring this to a future date? Having some more conversations, we can always bring it back up.
Yeah, you know, whatever, yeah,
What's the timeline on when the decision would have to be made?
you know, in summer, like,
We need to know by October.
Seems fair.
The only thing I would say is block parties are approved on a first come, first served basis. So if depending on the date you're choosing to do it, if it's the official trick or treat. We do typically get a handful of block party requests on Halloween evening
Sure,
for neighborhood trick or treats.
but never really on that Sunday, right?
I'm not gonna say there are none,
I don't
but
recall.
that's something that happens.
how many block parties are, I guess, and barricades? Okay,
Maybe less because we had
Well, it'd be less.
that street would eat up.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I'd say, you know, I'm open to deferring, you know, but I'd like to keep the conversation going. I'd like to talk to the people in the community to see kind of where they stand on it. And then, you know, we could bring this back up spring, whenever you feel
Okay.
ready.
Want to make a motion to defer? I'll second.
Yeah, so, I move to defer discussion on North Morris roadway closure for a trick or treat.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is deferred. Let's get to the totally easy one. 4th of July parade.
Oh, yeah.
We now have for us the discussion regarding review of the 4th of July parade route. Anybody have an opinion on how this should go?
I do see maps in here. Can you, you know, I know you had a meeting. Did you guys meet with Sarah? And
Yeah.
what was that? So what was kind of the conclusion? I see a final after meeting Lake Bluff to Atwater. Is that what you guys all said? Agreed on it? Yeah.
Those were the pre-2024 maps, just for reference only.
Cool.
Where that one ended up was, like, around 2 separate sides of the fence.
I am, you know, I'm personally in favor of the way it used to be. I mean,
That's where I'm at.
to River Park. I know it's not popular with some people, but I do, you know, I've participated in the parade for the last 6 years, walking the parade. And, you know, I think I think it's really important to traverse all of Shorewood. And there's so many people in that southern part of the community that, you know, whether they're seniors or, you know, or they just don't want to come up to know. I think we just got to serve the whole community, and then ending at River Park it's just been so much fun in the past. So I do see a lot of value in going all the way down.
That's where I'm at, but go around the horn. We'll start with PD,
Where should I start?
wherever you would like.
So, our position is to keep the parade route as we did last year, and ending at Atwater. Some of the concerns that we saw from the very first year that I was here is, that the attendance south of Capitol was almost non-existent, so there's that. Now, whether or not people didn't come out or had mobility issues, I'm not sure what the reason for that was, but the attendance or the participation south of Capitol was very, very minimal. That's what we saw in the first year. So for us to close, if we were to cross Capitol, we would need at least 3 squads to block north and south, and then the turn lane. We have 1 squad in the front of the parade, 2 squads in the back of the parade, so that's a total of 6 squads. And we don't have enough squads to do that. We don't have enough personnel to do that. So that's one of the issues that we have. Not only that, but for the amount of time that it then takes to cross Capitol for us to get over to Lake Drive to close off for the 4th of July, for the fireworks, is really restricted. So we then have to find personnel from somewhere to go over and close off Lake Drive. Even so, our staffing is already restricted. Even with restricted staffing, thereby not allowing individuals to take extra off days, we still don't have enough people to staff everything that needs to be staffed. So I guess it's going to incur a great deal of overtime. We're gonna have to call early shift in, but we already extend them for the fireworks. Day shift will have to stay over. So those are some of the considerations that we have for crossing Capitol. We also found that the reviews from going to Atwater were extremely positive. The participation on Elmdale was huge. And then the community event at Atwater was very well received. So those are all the things that we're looking at. Obviously, of course, closing Capitol is a state highway, which Leanne can speak to that a little bit more about the parameters of that. Which we ultimately do east of Oakland for the fireworks anyway. So did I miss anything?
I mean, realistically, we should have somebody staffed at Morris as well, or DPW should have somebody staffed at Morris as well. We don't have the equipment nor the people to do that. Morris becomes the workaround where people drive around the barriers because going south from Capitol, we have to leave the barriers open because the residents are trying to leave, going out that way, while people turn into there, and now they're going all the way down. And we do get cars out on the parade route that we're always trying to take care of. Additionally,
Morris,
from
Menlo turns into Morris.
Yes.
Okay.
So they get there and they'll cut through the parking lots or however else, and they'll get onto the parade route. And it's very dangerous, plus all the streets that we have to block and driveways and parking lots we have to block from Edgewood all the way up. In addition to that, we still have to answer calls for service. So not only do we have all the squads there, we still have to have squads out on the road taking calls for service. We only have 7 cars. And I come in on my day off, on my holiday off, to take one of the unmarks out to go, but we physically do not have enough equipment to do this.
How do we do it in the past?
Poorly. I mean, we would actually not have cars to take assignments. We would actually put them down on the parade. And now if we're running the parade with the red light, green light, that's how you're getting these huge monster gaps in the parade as well. And that's why it takes so long. And I think Lake Drive is supposed to be shut down at 5-ish. All I know is that we had the men's club calling up and basically yelling at us that we needed to shut down Lake Drive because their vendors were showing up and we didn't have any barricades. If DPW doesn't have to supply barricades from Capitol South, they can pre-stage all those correct me if I'm wrong, they can pre-stage all of those barricades on Lake Drive. Now, if we go all the way to River Park, we have to wait for the parade to be completely done. We still have to keep Capitol blocked because now the DPW crews are out there taking everything down. They have to remove all those barricades, now transfer them over to Lake Drive and take the 2 garbage trucks over to Lake Drive. So, I mean, we're not shutting down Lake Drive in a timely manner. at all, plus all the equipment has to be moved.
Time's our parade start right now? Like noon?
Yeah.
I mean, why does it start so late? Is there a reason why?
I imagine it's because we have vendors that are in our parade, much big parade, what's now, I mean, it's sort of travel the day.
Part of it, I think over the years, there's also been a concerted effort to kind of compress activities so that people can move from one to the next, rather than a parade, and then we have 2-3 hours, and then we have this, and then we have 2-3 hours before the fireworks, so I don't believe it's always been like that. That's been a more recent effort.
Yeah, no. I just feel like if we could do this earlier, I mean, it's a compelling argument not to close down Capitol. I love it going down to River Park. Like I said, I've done it the best since I can remember. We do it with the baseball team. We go down there, we have a baseball game at the field. It's just so much fun, and you get all of the, we always have ice cream that's donated. We have all of the elderly folks coming out of the assisted, not the assisted living, but the apartments down there, and it's just like so many people together at one place. It's a lot of fun. I didn't really get that vibe at Atwater, but again, I'm sure you could get that eventually. I mean, baseball, you can't really have a baseball game there.
Anything from Commissioner Blair? Yeah,
I mean, I would just echo the challenges when the route is, covers a greater area. It's really difficult in the time frame available for us to hold barricades down along the parade route and then get to Atwater in time to get that set up in a timely manner so that those events can take place as scheduled.
I'd be real interested in figuring out. Still pretty strongly leaning towards the full route, but I would be very interested to figure out how much it would cost to rent barricades. I mean, this is the sort of second conversation where we've talked about.
Yeah, I
network barricades.
don't personally believe that's the biggest issue.
No, it's one of,
It's one of,
to pick them up, to
Um,
move them, to replace them.
but even if we don't have to move them, we still have to pull them all down.
Mhm.
And then we have to go from point O to point A. And so, yes, that would make it more efficient, but it doesn't really address the primary issue, which is the length of the route means it takes this long to do it, and we don't have that long before we need to be over there.
How many staff are usually on for DPW like that?
4, I believe, Dan,
26,
out of 19,
19.
4.
Give you 7 more.
4,
I'll give you 7 more in the head.
sweet.
Only in my head, it's not,
$7 an
it's not
hour.
on any paper. I just feel like there's a way to do this. We've done it for a long time. There's a way to figure this out, to do it.
Yeah, we do play second fiddle to the Whitefish Bay Parade. I hear that every year, like, oh, why can't we be more like Whitefish Bay? And I feel like now we're scheduling it later. I could kill us, but we're scheduling later to accommodate their parade. I feel like if we could get this thing scheduled much earlier in the day, it would help everybody out. Then you're not just
It
kind of.
doesn't know, is it?
Then we're pulling the same talent,
It's
entertainment
making it
class. That's why it also works. It's kind of mutual for everybody. It
It
helps
doesn't
because
need more OT for everybody if we do it earlier.
So I think the thing is, you're gonna have a very different parade if you do it earlier, because you're gonna be competing
Right.
with other communities for those marching bands and those entertainment units and all that
that
other.
historically already has that, time of day slotted for fill in the blank parade.
My thought now would be to. The huge, so. Send it to the board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the fence. I feel like, I think I'm on both sides of the fence. I love the old way, but I mean, it's such a compelling argument to condense it and to kind of go with what we did this year. So it just seems like it makes it easy.
The world's a very different place than it was 10 years ago in the parade world.
Yeah,
And the things that we could get away with 10 years ago, I don't want to have to explain why we did it why we didn't do it the way we knew we should have done it,
Yeah.
but we did it this way because that was what.
What we used to do.
The popping is the register. It's air in the register.
And just without repeating what's already been said with the equipment and staffing and the efficiency we did see from last year, it was also just a way to change the habit within the memo, but just bears repeating that next year, we're not gonna have this route. So changing it a little bit and then deciding what we're gonna do in 2026 is another way to just kind of gently nudge the community that we're not gonna have this long route in 26 either. So
I
Just
would,
wanted to
yeah,
say.
I think that makes me even more like, considered, or is it one last hurrah for the old route? And because once Oakland is closed for 2026, that we're gonna have to figure out a whole different sort of scenario. And that might be the bigger thing to think about. But it's a tough decision that I probably requires the full board
I
to.
mean, I don't wanna go with 2 out of 5 of us.
Right. And I don't feel strong enough one way or the other. I really love the old route. I had a lot of fun going all the way down. But
And we can send it to the board for further discussion. But we don't have to have a recommendation. from the committee. And just send a discussion to everybody, maybe as a whole. So I would entertain that motion. So discussion.
Yeah.
Then we-
the memo caption has discussion and possible action, however, it was not agendized. We have the old caption. So right now it just says review the July route.
Oh.
So we would likely just take that recommendation to a future item of consideration. Just as a heads up.
Yeah, so if we don't have to motion,
Yeah.
then.
Okay.
Then Aaron can pick it up and take it. Nothing happened.
Wow.
It's
I
especially
think it's, like, roads are tied and something. Didn't even happen.
Let's look at this next.
Yeah, consider 2025 initiatives. We have 13 minutes to decide what we're gonna do this year.
Would you like me to pull these up? I know
Please.
Becky wrote the memo, so I'm happy to just toggle through what we have on the packet. So let's see what we got.
Wow.
All right. So without repeating what is on the screen and what you've likely already seen in the packet, we did include information for what's on the docket for the village board initiatives. We have our staff initiatives, which are the items that basically feed into all of the department's work plans. So again, we'll not read these verbatim because we have many pages to go through. Were there, I guess, to cut to the chase, are there any questions that you all had? on
Yeah,
any of those
so-
pages?
We had talked about, for, the signage on Oak Leaf Trail, the sort of that language, the 3 recommendations that the public safety committee had, pedestrian safety committee had. Do they find themselves in this?
They are all in the packet.
So we have approved those, right, as board?
We're
Or,
already within the 2025 budget.
They're
So
already-
since we were on hold in 2025, in fact, we just started the initiative discussion. So, without,
that's what I thought. I thought we gave the green light to those initiatives. Today we started receiving several emails of people saying that they want us to support these initiatives today. I felt like we already had supported them, so, and they're in this initiative plan, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The ones that are listed within the packet.
Is Sandy still on?
So the
I'm
next,
still on.
So Sandy, you heard that, you understand that those initiatives are in fact moving forward. We have green lighted those and they are in the 2025 work plan.
Yes, I think that's great. Thank you very much.
clarification on that,
Yeah.
they will then be assigned to lead staff, and the lead staff will then be the ones who will reach out and review that in conjunction with their work plan and put together that finalized timetable.
So just like any other work plan.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. We look forward on the subcommittee working with Bart and Heather, moving forward on those. So that's great.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, we had just received several emails today of people wanting us to support those, so I just want you to make sure, like, to go back to the committee. I mean, we can email those folks, but just remind everybody that those were moving forward.
Rebecca, anything else we should know about initiatives?
No, you've seen.
All of them? Like, many times.
So,
On the agenda for me.
yes,
Move forward with these.
a recommendation to the board, please.
Where you at?
I don't know what page it is on.
No,
I know, no,
Oh, okay.
I just, these are things that we've been working on for a while and my instinct is to move forward with them, but we have 9 minutes here to go through, a significant amount of, initiatives. So I feel slight disservice to this work, and these are all things that we have been talking about and working through. So, I wish we had a little bit more time to sit down and kind of review and discuss, but.
Yeah. When do these need to be finalized for 25? Like, is this something we can have another committee meeting on and dig into a little bit?
You can, but can I start moving forward with some?
I think you can probably move forward with all of them until we say no.
Okay, I mean, I wouldn't want to go past March. But I do have something I'm working on that I need to start and clear the deck on, starting at the next meeting.
Let's go. So what you want to go through those? The ones that you need to.
Well, they've just authorized me to do the parking meter analysis, so that would be,
Okay.
right, so that would be one. I don't, we're gonna be working on the audit RFP. I mean, stuff that we've queued typically, like for work plans, and we're in a transition year, right, with the new policy 49. So this will look and feel a bit more organized next year, because typically we would have been doing this review at the closing quarter of the prior year. But most of them are teed up, so we're already in motion on many of them, or at least I am.
I guess I would feel comfortable moving forward, recommending this, moving forward with the recommendation. It's going to go to the full board anyway. So, I mean, there's going to be, when will the full board
Next meeting.
So,
Yeah.
I move to recommend the attached 2025 initiatives for approval.
I'll second. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion passes. We are not agenda for anything else, so
move.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Stand adjourned at one more time. It's 7:23.
Well, thank you.